I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, it's 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war, I'm coming for throats, to turn to a ghost, I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get is by letting them talk, so I'm letting them talk.
All right. What's going on, everybody? Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, you're here.
What's going on, everybody? It's Dan here, another Dan Fantasy podcast, and we've got Trevor Steinbacher by my side as always. Excited to get back. Last time we talked to you guys, it was pre-draft, so now we know where all those rookies are playing, and we can gear up for these Dynasty rookie drafts if you haven't already knocked a few of those out. I know Trevor and I have.
Oh, yeah. Plenty of drafting happening. It's rookie fever. It's rookie season. I can't wait to get into this, Dan, because I think that we have, at least in my drafts, too many, like we are overvaluing these rookies right now. And maybe it's just because it is that time of year, but I could barely get a draft pick for any trades. And I wasn't trying to beat around the bush, and nobody wanted it to give up their draft picks. So I'm excited to get into this one, talk some rookies, and of course, do that mock draft.
Man, well, what's funny is we kind of talked about it in our last show too, right? That this was a little bit of a down year in terms of fantasy rookies outside of maybe the tight end class and Bijan Robinson. There wasn't really like a lot of highly touted players that were coming in. So it's kind of strange that people were so clingy to their picks. I mean, if I was in that Dynasty league, I didn't have a first round pick this year in the one that I've done so far. I'd be trying to move those for sure, especially if I'm squared up. Like for my team in particular, I'll talk more in depth about who I took later, but I have Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. So I'm pretty squared away in the QB realm. So everything else was just value for me. So teams that are set up like that, like you have no reason to hang on to that first round pick. You can kind of move it and get some capital for next year. Maybe shoot for what's his name? Caleb Williams coming out of USC.
Williams.
Right?
Yep. Is it Harrison's next year? I believe.
Yep.
And there's some good guys next year, and I think the class is deeper than it is this year.
Yep.
Especially
Marvin Harrison Jr. Yeah,
that's right. He's there. Welcome in, everybody. What is up, Noob, Rockney? Let's go. Indeed, if you're in here with us, jump in the chat, get involved. Let us know. We're going to talk some rookie risers and fallers. So kind of give us your thoughts on those rookies. We're going to recap a couple of our drafts, and we already mentioned it. I'll put the link. I'll do that right now as we kind of move along, but I'll put the link in the draft here into the chat. So if you want to join the mock draft, we're going to start that probably around 9:00 tonight.
Yep. There we go. That's going to be exciting, man. I need to get my fix in. Like I said, I've only done one rookie draft so far. And once June hits, it's redraft mock season for me. So I am dying for a good mock.
You got any startups this year? Startup dynasties?
No startups yet, at least. I know I've talked about it a little bit with my guys who we've done a redraft. We've done a keeper redraft league for a couple of years now. Not everyone is as into fantasy as much as a couple of us are. So we've talked about doing like an 8-man dynasty startup here and there just to kind of see, what happens, or maybe we could get enough interest to do a 10-man. But I'm definitely looking to start one of those up sooner rather than later.
Well, you can always hit me up. Not that I need to be in more, but I'd have none. I have no startups this year. It's probably the first time in about 4 years I haven't had a startup yet. But man, I always get the itch right about rookie season or rookie draft season ending. It's like, all right, June's here. It's time to go. Although getting into best ball as much as I did last year and doing that again this year will be helpful, because then it won't make me want to do as many startup drafts and join as many drafts there. So drafting is the best part about fantasy football, other than winning championships, of course.
Absolutely. It's so funny. Junkies like us, man. We can be in as many leagues. I always say I'm going to cut back, and then I end up being in like 3 times more than what I say.
Speaking of junkies, this is just sick. 29 round startup dynasty draft. That's huge. Usually I think my startup drafts are like 18 to 22, right? but 29 rounds, that's a big one. I could understand
Hopefully
why
you
that
had
was a
timer on.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Lee's trying to join your startup draft already, Dan. So
Hey,
we'll have to. We can't talk money on here, Lee. Just Venmo us. We'll make sure it happens.
you're gonna get the invite,
And
Lee. Don't worry about
that's
that.
right. That's right. Listener of the year, Michael, welcome in, man. I've got rookie fever. The only cure is Deuce Vaughn. I like to hear this because Michael's a
yeah.
Wisconsin guy. He lives out in California. Deuce Vaughn is going way too early in all of my rookie drafts, but it's because where we live, everybody loves, they're K-State guys, they're Chiefs fans, they just love, the Kansas area.
For sure.
So, of course, Deuce Vaughn is way up on draft boards here locally, but to see a Wisconsin guy go after Deuce Vaughn, I like to see that. He's not even a Dallas fan, Here's our Dallas fan, all rookie startup drafts. Tyler, we were in a startup draft a couple years ago. He picked all rookie drafts.
Oh my goodness!
You could draft the rookie picks.
Yeah,
and he just kept picking rookie picks. He won the championship last year.
I was going to ask how'd that work out.
So worked out really well for him.
What year did you guys start it up? Because that matters. If it was 2020, then that would make a ton of sense why he won it.
I think it was. Well, that's one of the drafts I've already done, so I can look at his team. I'm pretty sure we did the startup draft. Man, I want to say 2 years ago.
If it was 2020, I mean, you're talking Burrow, Herbert, Tua coming out the gate.
So it wouldn't have been that one because he's got Lawrence.
Okay, 21. Still a lot of talent.
It must have been 21, but he doesn't really have a lot of those guys, so he must have ended up trading away a lot of them. Unless I'm looking at the wrong league, which could also be true. But
wheeling and dealing, baby. That's the name of the game.
Right. That's what you got to do to make sure you get where you want to be. So, yeah, Trevor Lawrence, rookie year. Yeah, so that's awesome. Welcome in, everybody. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for being here in the chat. Dan, let's talk draft night here. Let's talk draft night. Man. I want to hear your, highlights from that night.
It was so much fun actually being there in person. Got to go out there with a bunch of guys that, close friends. We also happen to have season tickets together and whatnot. So it was a good experience here in the hometown, Kansas City, getting to wear your Super Bowl championship gear, walking around. But even more so, it was
Super Bowl champion gear.
You already know, baby.
That's right.
But even more fun was getting to see these guys come out on the stage, shake hands with Goodell, and you get to plot in the back of your head a little bit on who you're going to target for your Dynasty.
Where were you at? Thursday night, you're there. Where are you standing?
So it was kind of crazy. Down at the very bottom's the stage, right? And then there's a viewing area with the fountain and the tables and everything. Mm-hmm. You go up to that next tier, and you're sitting on basically like a grass berm that overlooks the stage. To the left, if I'm facing the stage, to my left was a big Bud Light beer tent.
Oh, yeah.
And to the right was kind of the drop off to the road. So we were in a perfect spot, if you could imagine.
Yeah.
It was great. I mean, we were just standing in that middle tier. Kind of wild. There was another tier up at the very top where there was a lot of interactive games for family. And then there was like big old helmets that you could take pictures with and things like that. Well, as the draft was approaching, they started gating things off because they were hitting capacity for the different levels. So my group literally gets through as they're closing the gate from the top part to get down to that next tier. So, because if you were up there, you really couldn't see the stage.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's awesome. I was down there. I was down there a little early on Tuesday or Thursday, took some shots, got some content rolling for Bite Size Sports, and then left for a little pre-draft party, came back, got down there and to the north lawn. And I was maybe there 20 minutes, and I heard like you get the alert on your phone. North lawn is closed capacity.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was pretty cool. I only stayed for through the Colts Anthony Richardson pick, but
you saw your guy and you're like,
that's right. That's right. I'm like, perfect. Took my kiddo down there Friday to enjoy some of those games and whatnot, just for a little while. But yeah, it was an awesome experience. Love to have that in Kansas City,
man,
for sure. So Hopefully, if you are a Kansas City native, you got to go out there. I knew so many people that were there, and I didn't see anyone. Not one person. Did not nobody I knew. I did not run into. So that was interesting. A lot of people were down there. All right, let's talk the draft itself, player wise. We're talking rookies tonight. What was your favorite pick in terms of fantasy football rookies? All the above. Like, what was your favorite pick there?
Man, so I'm like, all this disparity between Travis Kelce and the rest of the tight ends in the league right now. As much as I love it as a Chiefs fan, I am so tired of it as a fantasy football enthusiast. So this highly touted tight end class coming in, I was so excited to see where they were going to fall, who was going to take them. And you obviously know that there's a lot of high-powered offenses that needed tight ends. I mean, I'm talking Buffalo Bills, Cincinnati Bengals, the Dallas Cowboys. They all came in as tight end needy teams. And so my absolute favorite pick from a fantasy perspective has to be the Dalton Kincaid pick. He seemed to be the almost consensus number one tight end coming in. Maybe some Michael Mayer truthers out there had him as their number one. But plug in him, this athletic guy. He's a little bit older than the rest of the tight end class. So, he's a little more polished. I think he's a little more NFL ready. Getting him in that Buffalo offense is going to be a game changer for Josh Allen. Dawson Knox has been pretty solid, but we just really haven't seen much as you want to see from him, right? And so getting Kincaid in there, I think, is going to be a huge add. Take some of that pressure off of Josh Allen scrambling out of the pocket, and take some of the pressure off of Stephon Diggs from being that all-time number one guy,
Yeah, it was hard for me not to use Dalton Kincaid on our rookie risers coming up, because it's been there. Like, he's one of them that you can easily talk. Oh, I did, right? Oh, I did write Dalton Kincaid down. I was like,
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. We're going to talk about it a little bit later too. But yeah, absolutely. I think they had some really good landing spots there. And I have it written down, but I think he's going to be the number 2 pass catcher over the next couple of years, very quickly. At least he'll have the opportunity to do it. Dawson Knox, man, he is who we know he is. Like, he's just he'll catch 3 touchdowns one week probably, but like, that's it. He's gonna have 2 catches on 3 targets for 2 touchdowns every once in a while, but you're never gonna know when it's gonna happen.
Right.
So it's exciting to see. Not as a Chiefs fan, but as a fantasy guy, it's exciting to see the Bills get some offensive power in that high octane offense there.
For sure.
Dan, I got to go with my guy, man. I got to go with my guy, Anthony Richardson. I was high on him before. We had our pre NFL draft. We talked a little bit about rankings. I had Anthony Richardson as my QB1 back then. I don't think it was anything outlandish or crazy. Other people were doing it as well, but I really loved Richardson, and he's obviously fits the brand that I love to play with, and that's the running quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
And so sometimes too much when you chase Trey Lance all over for 3 years, but I love Anthony Richardson. And I mean, honestly, in this Shane Steichen offense, let's talk about Jalen Hurts real quick here. Just over the last couple of years, in 2021, the first year he has Steichen as the offensive coordinator, he comes to Philly, full-time starter for Jalen Hurts, over 3,000 yards passing, 16 touchdowns, 784 rushing yards, and 10 touchdowns. He ends up in his first full year as a starter as the quarterback 9, utilizing both his arm and his legs. His second year, obviously last year, in that Super Bowl run, right? 3,700 plus yards passing, 22 touchdowns, 760 yards right again, but 13 rushing touchdowns.
Yep.
He was well on his way to being quarterback 1. He was well on his way to being the MVP until he gets injured at the end of the year. And obviously that's always going to be kind of an issue with running quarterbacks. And Jalen Hurts got sacked a whole lot too in Philadelphia. But just being able to utilize his legs. And Dan, what was the most annoying part about rostering a guy like Miles Sanders last year?
Is the vulturing of rushing touchdowns.
Vulturing, exactly, the goal line work. Like, Shane Steichen is going to use Anthony Richardson inside the 5-yard line. I'm not knocking Jonathan Taylor, because Jonathan Taylor is a whole different type of running back. He's no
Right.
Miles Sanders by any means, right? But 23 rushing touchdowns in 2 years, it's a fantasy goldmine in this offense with his athleticism, the way he can utilize his legs. I really think Steichen is going to utilize him in a very similar way he utilized Hurts. He's obviously not Jalen Hurts. I'm not trying to say that. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying Anthony Richardson will be Jalen Hurts. But in Shane Steichen's offense, the way he utilizes these quarterbacks, I really love this landing spot. And again, I already had him as QB1 in the class. It just solidified it. And it really made – I never had this situation, but it made me think about, would I take Anthony Richardson over Bijan Robinson in a Superflex draft? We'll see here later on in the Superflex mock draft. Maybe I'll pull the number one and just make it happen. But yeah, I love Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis in this offense.
Well, you've been selling me on him, man. I got to tell you, I think, just looking at the numbers from what Jalen Hurts was able to accomplish, how could you not love the potential at the very least that Anthony Richardson carries in this Colts offense? And we all know how big of a threat Jonathan Taylor is in the red zone, not to mention between the 20s, right? So he's going to play into that misdirection. These offenses are going to be, or defenses rather, they're going to be keying in on Jonathan Taylor in the red zone. It's going to allow Anthony Richardson to pull the old switcheroo on him and sneak that sucker into the end zone, maybe bust it on the outside or do a little dump off to a tight end after they all collapse in on JT. So I think that really adds a new flavor to this offense, having someone that's, as athletic as Richardson is back there, especially with Steichen making the calls.
That's right. Yeah, and the amount of times they did like those quarterback sneaks, man, they were unstoppable with the yardage QB
92% of the time.
Holy cow. Who's your favorite? If you're in the chat here, let us know your favorite landing spot for fantasy football. We're talking fantasy football here. You want to talk just regular landing spots? You want to talk offensive tackles and linebackers? Go check out our boys on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Central on Necessary Roughness. Last night, they had a Seattle Seahawks writer on, content creator. It was a really good show. Go check it out. But yeah, if you want to talk the nitty gritty, get into that. Go hang out with them on Tuesday nights. Tonight, we just want to know where's your favorite landing spot for fantasy football? Lee says in Jigba to Seattle, probably going to put them in the NFC West picture. This one's. I had JSN a tier above everybody else in the wide receiver spot. How do you feel about this landing spot since Lee brought it up?
Yeah, I mean, I was a little disappointed that the Seahawks were the team to draft him. Now, I think they can utilize him. Obviously, he's going to be great out of the slot. I kind of felt like Tyler Lockett spent a lot of time there too. And maybe they're prepping for him to be gone. I don't know how many years he has left on his contract, at least not off the top of my head. But it's clear that DK Metcalf is in the future plans for the Seattle Seahawks. But Tyler Lockett's coming up on 30 pretty quick. So getting JSN in there, I mean, it makes sense for the long-term plans. I'm just a little concerned about the short-term, how much volume he's really going to get compared to what he would have gotten if he maybe went to another wide receiver needy team like Houston, like Tennessee, those teams that a lot of, NFL mock or NFL draft enthusiasts had him going to. That's really my only concern. Now, I think he'll still perform, right? But it's just to what extent now?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I've already been debating on, and I think I actually have pulled the trigger on this about moving Jordan Addison above JSN. And the main reason is I think Minnesota is in a position where they've already moved on from Adam Thielen. They've already moved on from that guy. They've already moved on from the Tyler Lockett types. Right. Whereas JSN has to still kind of deal with that for the first year at least. We know Minnesota is going to put Jordan Addison on the field from the very beginning. JSN is going to get on the field as well, right? But JSN is going to get on the field along with two different running backs in a run-first style offense, plus two, big-time wide receivers who have had great NFL success. That's going to be hard to earn targets in. When I look at Jordan Addison's position in Minnesota, it's TJ Hawkinson and it's Justin Jefferson, right?
Right.
And there's going to be plenty of times where teams are going to try to do their best to slow down the best wide receiver in the game, and Justin Jefferson. Hopefully, ideally for Minnesota, I think it would open up a Jordan Addison to get some action. So I really do think, in season long, I would take this year. I would take Jordan Addison over JSN, and right now I've put him over him just purely based on the landing spot and how like that offense operates with Kirk Cousins. I'll take Kirk Cousins over Geno. They're both whatever
sure.
mid-tier kind of got quarterbacks. Not going to win your ships, but with fantasy football, he'll give me enough action here for Jordan Addison. And again, this year too, for sure, I would take him just in a 1-year sample, being in Minnesota, being on the field from day one.
Oh yeah. Kirk Cousins is safe, man. He's been my safety blanket for a few years now at quarterback. So I totally could see that. I think, they're pass heavy. Who knows what's going to happen with Cousins after this year, but they could be trying to resurrect that offense they had in the late 90s with Carter and Moss. So
absolutely. Yeah, that was pretty sick too. Let's kind of talk quickly. We can definitely move around our rookie risers and fallers if we need to, but let's talk a little bit about our rookie drafts that we've had already. I'll let you kind of kick us off. Do you have it pulled up? I can share it if you want. If not, you can kind of just talk through your rookie draft.
I don't have it pulled up necessarily, no. But I do. I can just give you kind of a background on who I took and kind of where I was. Basically, I had made a trade last year. We did a Dynasty startup, so I made a trade to acquire a few picks. So I traded my 11th and 14th round pick, as well as my 2023 first round pick, and in the rookie draft, and I acquired a 9th and a 6th in the startup and got an additional 4th round pick in the rookie draft. So that ended up being, after the dust settled, Mike Evans, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Tank Dell, the new wide receiver for Houston that CJ Stroud made the call for. Got those 3 on my end, and then the person I traded with turned his picks into Dameon Pierce, Chuba Hubbard, and Zay Flowers. So what do you think on that trade? Who won that one?
Chuba, Zay, and who was the other one?
Chuba, Zay Flowers, and Dameon Pierce.
Well, I'm not a Dameon Pierce guy, so and Zay Flowers has been falling down my board quite a bit. So I'm gonna take your side with Mike Evans and Tank Dell for sure. I don't want to go off topic too much, but can this just remind? Can we talk about CJ Stroud's reaction and watching that live on Thursday night when Houston trades into the 3 spot right after taking Stroud, gets right back in there. Stroud's like right in front of the stage, and he just like whips his head back like. I was oh my God, did he just get Eli Manning?
Yes.
What happened?
I was like, no way they just moved him. And I thought for a second, like that was my first initial reaction. Thanks, Kev. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, it's on your side too.
My second reaction was, oh crap, did they trade up and grab a receiver for him? Because I thought JSN might have been the guy they trade up for. They were teammates in college and all that good stuff. And I figured they would maybe wait for him at 12, but I thought they were maybe just super eager. And then Willie Anderson ends up being the pick there. So, I mean, makes sense. But
I still I will never know, but I believe, I truly believe, and I said it that night, they had the trade done before they pick Stroud. I don't think they take Stroud if they don't get back into 3. Like I think they might have taken Will Anderson, but I think once they realized they could get into 3 and take Will Anderson too, now they're like, all right, we'll take Stroud and Anderson both. It was a hell of a move. Really good move for their franchise.
Very savvy move by Caserio out there for sure.
And they had the picks to do it as well. They had the picks to do it.
Absolutely.
And more on your rookie draft.
Yep. So I had 4 picks at my disposal in the second round. Pick 7 in the second round. I took Rashee Rice, my boy. I got
Oh,
Patrick
yeah.
Mahomes. I got Patrick Mahomes on this team, so I
You got to
unite
have at
the
least one
receiver.
share of him, you know?
Absolutely. Give me in on that. So I was able to snag him. We did, and this is a little different for a dynasty rookie, but we did a snake draft. So it came back around to me, and Luke Musgrave, tight end, was still on the board. I needed to fill in a new position for my tight end. I have Darren Waller, who just got traded to the Giants, but my other tight end is on the older side. So I decided to backfill that a little bit, got Tank Dell in the 4th round. And then the final pick I had in the 4th round, we actually can draft free agents as well. So I ended up taking Quez Watkins from Philadelphia. I just wasn't really big on.
I don't know if I've ever had a rookie draft that you could take free agents with.
I've never heard of it either. So I was a little confused when Tom Brady was on the board. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to roll with
anymore.
it. Yeah. Some other players were picked that weren't rookies in the draft. So I think it was less of a rookie draft and more of like a supplemental draft almost.
Yeah. That's I've never seen that before. So that's pretty interesting I like mixing it up every once in a while, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's definitely a twist on it for sure. Definitely a twist. But I'll give you a rundown of the first round. So I didn't have a first round pick, but it went Bijan, round 1. Your boy, Anthony Richardson, pick 2. Jahmyr Gibbs at 3. Bryce Young, 4. CJ Stroud, 5. JSN, 6. And then Addison. And then Johnston Flowers. So a little wide receiver run at the back end of round 1. Followed by Kincaid, Charbonnet, and Mingo to wrap it up.
Okay.
So Jonathan Mingo.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about Mingo here in a little bit too.
Into the first round.
That's for
sure. I'm excited to hear your take on Mingo for sure.
I wouldn't take him there. That's my take on Mingo.
Yeah.
Let me pull up mine. I have completed 2 of them, and I'm right dead smack in the middle of another one that we're about to be done with here. Dynasty League of Dad Bods. So
love it.
So this is a super flex league that I don't know how to get rid of all this, but it's fine. Super flex league, 2 quarterbacks, obviously. First three rounds here. My team personally, it bit the dust after the startup last year. So I'm going to have a couple productive struggle years here, but I was able to jump into this draft and get picks 8, 9, and 10. So you can kind of just see where I'm at. I take Addison here at 8. With Johnston going, I take Levis at 10, A-Chain at 11, Rashee Rice myself here at 206. And then I get a guy, Josh Downs is a guy that I think I love taking him here in the 3rd round. So I had some action, a lot, too much to like walk through, but I wanted to kind of point out when I show you all the draft board here, can you see it very well? Maybe I can zoom in a little bit.
It looks pretty good on my end, but yeah, okay. That's good.
That might be too much, but anyways,
that's good.
There we can see it all. So for me, and I want to kind of get your take as well as you see this draft board. My biggest surprise was Hendon Hooker at 201. I know it's a super flex, but even in the super flex, Hooker's probably going to fall to 301 for this guy. I would assume. Obviously you don't want to take your chance and you just want to go get your guy, but 201 just stood out to me here in this draft, particularly for Hendon Hooker.
No, I absolutely agree with that for sure. I think a bigger surprise to me is that none of these premier tight ends made it to the back end of the first round. Especially with the gentleman that took Hooker, right? They have a clear path to get Kincaid or Zay Flowers, or Mayer, who I think maybe is the best 3 players that he passed on. All guys that a lot of these guys I'd rank above Hooker if I'm looking at my own board. Is that his team on the far left side there?
Yeah, this is his team.
Okay, so I mean, you're looking at his quarterbacks too, and it's always important to take the vacuum situation and throw it throw it away, right? You got to look at your team as you're evaluating who you're going to take. His quarterback situation is really not that great. So I honestly don't understand why he passed on a quarterback at pick 1. Even with the pedigree Bijan carries, he's still got Alvin Kamara. He's still got Breece Hall. So he's got a younger guy that can kind of fill in there. There's some other needs there at running back, clearly, but I think quarterback.
Yeah, but you could take for him. Keandre Miller, Tank Bigsby, Tajay Spears.
Exactly.
Take your pick of second-round type running backs that you want. I mean, look how many running backs go in the third round in this draft.
For sure.
I agree with what you're saying there.
And he passed him up again. I mean, Roschon Johnson at 3-1, I think that's a great pick, and he let it go by to take the second receiver drafted by the Houston Texans. So
people love Xavier Hutchinson, man.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm definitely scratching my head there. Not to pick on this guy too much, but definitely not the strategy I would employ, at least when I know I have Aaron Rodgers who's pushing 40, Baker Mayfield who has the most unclear quarterback situation out of the 32 starters, assuming he starts over Kyle Trask and Jared Goff in Detroit. So
who's got 1, maybe 2 years left.
Right.
I guess I kind of understand. I didn't really put 2 and 2 together with Goff and Hooker. Maybe that, that route, but
that natural succession.
Not necessarily excited about that. So my second one here, this is a 16 team. I talk about this league a lot. 16 team, 4 divisions, 4 teams in every division. The 4 division winners go to the playoffs, and then 4 top scoring teams make the playoffs. So 8 of the 16. I did not pick at all in this draft. So we don't talk about me. I won a championship 2 years ago, and I sold my soul for the championship. So I'm going to run out, dusty old DeAndre Hopkins and ACL tear Cooper Kupp this year, and some of these old guys that helped me win a championship 2 years ago. So anyways,
some sentimental value there, at least.
Yeah, that's right. So for here, this is a 1 quarterback league, but again, 16 teams. It definitely changes the landscape of quarterbacks. Obviously, we all know there's only 32 starters every week,
right?
And some weeks there's only 26 starters in the week. So quarterbacks do definitely have a little bit of higher value with this. And then we also juice their stats a little bit in this league. I think they get 6 points for a passing touchdown, things like that, right?
Nice.
So when I look at this one, 2 surprises really jumped out at me. One is Bryce Young. I guess it's not really a surprise, but to me it was. Bryce Young going over Anthony Richardson. I've really seen Richardson since the NFL draft kind of become the consensus number 1 quarterback.
Yeah.
And we've seen, very similar to your draft where Gibbs goes ahead of the other 2 quarterbacks, right? Like I've seen that a little bit as well, even in Superflex too. So it was just interesting that Young goes over Richardson here at 106. Richardson goes at 107. And then Devin Achane. Not only does he fall to pick 15, you can find him here, but he was the 6th running back off the board. And that to me, I mean, I have Devin Achane as my 3rd running back
he
ranked,
moved up
right?
Me.
And so I don't know. That was just alarming. Now, as soon as Achane started falling, I was trying to get into this draft desperately. When I said at the top where I think people are overvaluing rookies, this was one of those areas that I'm like, everybody's like, no, I just want the rookie. No, I just want the rookie. I'm like, I got veterans that can help you win today, and they're just trying to get off these rookies. But it's all good. It's all good. I also try to get in for Josh Downs. So probably from 110 to 204, I was just desperately trying to get in here so I could take Devin Achane or Josh Downs. But ultimately, none of that worked out. And Achane just falls. That was surprising to me. So do you see anything here, Bijan? So for the audio listeners, I'll give you like the top 10. Bijan, Gibbs, JSN, Addison, Quentin Johnson, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, Dalton Kincaid, Roschon Johnson, CJ Stroud. Anything that kind of jumps out to you, the top of this list?
I mean, Roshan Johnson top 10 is wild
Yeah.
to me.
Wild.
Very wild to me. Mingo taken ahead of a lot of these other players that were behind him. Michael Mayer, Rishi Rice, what's it, Akine, or how do you say his
I used
name?
to say Akine, but now everybody I hear everybody say A-Chain.
A-Chain. Okay, so
So
that
I
mean
still
that
want it to be Akine.
I
It just
know,
sounds
right?
cooler.
That's the way I'm accustomed to it. But no, those are all surprising that he made it above them. If you're looking at Ming, I'd probably take Sam Laporta over Mingo too, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just Will Levis dropped late second almost. It's 16 picks. You got to take that into account for sure.
Absolutely. I would second
Deuce
round,
Vaughn early.
first round picks. Oh yeah, Deuce is always going early. Deuce Vaughn went in this one too. There's only 36 picks in this one. Deuce Vaughn gets in there.
Squeeze in the case. He's like, I got one more pick. I'm gonna take my Wildcat. Emaw.
That's right. Got to do it. So yeah, that's I like going through these rookie drafts and seeing like what actual other rookie drafters are doing. The mock drafts are great, and obviously everybody has different rosters going on here. That's always going to affect who we're going to be taking each and every time, right? Maybe you need a quarterback. Like we talked about, the one guy probably should have taken a quarterback because of his roster. So those always play into consideration as you go through your rookie drafts. But I would just, if you haven't started your rookie draft, jump in our mock draft right now. We got about 5 minutes before we kick this thing off. But just kind of go through mock drafts and think about your actual team. How would you draft your team? Don't just draft with ADP. Don't just draft with the board. Don't just draft with the rankings. That doesn't always work out. You have to draft to help your team get better. If you've got Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, like I have in a league, like I'm not going to go out and take Jahmyr Gibbs over JSN probably, right? Like I'm like, well, I got two young studs. I have no wide receivers. I'm going to take a stud wide receiver here instead of the stud running back, or move down. I love moving down 2 to 3 spots in drafts. If I really like 3 to 4 players, let somebody else give you an extra pick to come up a couple spots. I like doing that a lot.
100%.
Well, what do you want to do? How do you want to pull this off here? Do you want to do a quick risers before we do? Since we kind of told everybody 9:00, I'll let you talk about your rookie risers here, and I'll go ahead and get the mock draft. I'll put it in the chat one more time. Again, if you're with us, we're going to do a rookie super flex rookie 3-round mock draft here in about 5 minutes.
Yep, absolutely. So I can go ahead and just dive right in, man. As far as my risers go, this tight end class, right? There was a lot of it was pretty heavy and with talent. And Sam Laporta, by far, I think is the biggest riser from that class. Going to Detroit, they are a pretty talented offense as well. A lot of young pieces. They moved TJ Hawkinson before the trade deadline last year, so there was a clear vacancy. I think he's going to be a great fit there. Another Iowa guy, right? Get to fill in those shoes from Hawkinson. So he's rising for me for sure, which is another reason why I was so surprised about that Mingo pick. Rishi Rice in Kansas City. Obviously, you got to love the potential there. You don't know exactly how the wide receiver room is going to shake out in Kansas City. It's pretty crowded, but he seemed to be getting a lot of attention heading into the draft. And, Brett Veach, I feel like he has a pretty good knack for pulling these guys from smaller schools. He's coming out of SMU. So I really like him. Just the Mahomes factor alone is enough to push him up my board. And then A-Chain for Miami. They're really good about spreading the ball around to all of their running backs. Mike McDaniel runs the Shanahan offense. He can take you and me and put us in the backfield. We'll rush for 1,000 yards. So
I'll look like I'm fast again.
We'll be back at our prime again all of a sudden. So like that's a big riser for me for sure. He's in my top 3, maybe top 4 running backs coming out for rookies. I know they brought Jeff Wilson back. They still have Raheem Mostert for 1 year each. But those guys, who knows if they stick around if A-Chain really pops off. That's going to be a little getting used to phase for me to say his last name like that. But
that's how everybody else is saying it. So I'm like, it has to be right. I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be, but it feels like it's right.
If the internet says it's true.
That's right. Then it's got to be true.
But
I love A-Chain there. I love him in Miami. It is the perfect spot for him. He's super fast. He plays fast. They play fast. It's probably the fastest team in the league. Yep. That zone style running offense. I love A-Chain there. Mostert, Wilson, these guys can't stay on the field. They're getting old, as you mentioned. A-Chain's going to have plenty of opportunities this year.
For sure.
And I am stoked to see it. I'll go with my risers here, and then we'll talk fallers after the draft. What I did is I went back and I actually pulled up Dynasty League Football's April rookie ADP. So Ryan McDowell on there goes and compares rookie mock drafts essentially from, I think he uses My Fantasy League, but he just uses mock drafts to kind of pull a report for ADP for rookies. And so I looked at that, and then I kind of based it on like the drafts that I've actually completed, the 2 super flex drafts that I've completed. So just kind of understanding where these rookies are going, and the risers that I've seen, not the risers that I took a different route than you, right? You kind of talked about risers that you like. These are just guys I've seen in drafts that are rising, and I do not agree with these guys. Roshan Johnson, Jonathan Mingo, and then Dalton Kincaid, I agree with. But Roshan Johnson and Jonathan Mingo, I do not agree with these 2 guys rising up our rookie draft boards. But that's where they're being drafted, and I'm happy to let somebody else fall on that sword. In the 2 drafts that I've been in, Roshan Johnson picked at 26 and 15 in the Superflex drafts. And the non-Superflex draft, he was picked 9th, as you saw just recently. I have him ranked at 25 in Superflex, 23 in non-Superflex. So, 15 and 9 is just way too high for a guy like Roshan Johnson for me. And then Jonathan Mingo, 19th. He was picked 9th. He was picked 14th in a non-Superflex league. And I have him ranked right in front of Roshan Johnson at 24 and 22. So, again, they're just being picked so much higher than I've got these guys ranked overall. Just not somebody that I'm going to be clicking the button on if they're going to continue to go this early. And then Dalton Kincaid makes a ton of sense. You talked about Dalton Kincaid landing in Buffalo earlier. Drafted as the 2nd tight end off the board. He was kind of like the back end of round 2 pre-draft. Now he's the back end of round 1. You can get him in picks like 8 to 12, and rightfully so. We talked about that one rookie draft that I had, and no tight ends were taken. That's pretty rare. This guy is usually going at the back end of that first round. 34% college dominator according to Player Profile. The kid only played 1 year of high school football. Did you know that about Dalton? 1 year of high school.
I had no idea about that.
Goes to San Diego, transfers to Utah. Now he's one of the highest drafted tight ends that we've seen over the last couple of years. We don't see first rounds often. Everybody knows about the Kyle Pitts of the world, but we don't see first round tight ends too often. So reports at a rookie camp already, he's going to be lining up in the slot like as wide receiver more often than a tight end, which you like, because then Dalton Knox I'm going to do that a lot. Dawson Knox can still be in there doing his thing. Kincaid can run the routes. I really, I said it earlier, I think Dalton Kincaid could be Allen's number 2 wide receiver over the next couple of years. So I agree with him rising up these rookie ranks.
For sure.
Well, Dan,
I'm ready to draft, dude.
Yeah, let's do it. We didn't get 12 in like we got last time. If you're in the chat, you still got time. Hit the link. I put the link in the chat. I've seen a couple of you in the chat tonight that are not in the draft. You don't have to draft with us, but please do. If you're willing, I will give you 1 more minute to jump in here by clicking that link. It is a super flex linear, so Trevor doesn't make the mistake I made last time. A linear rookie draft. It is super flex, and we will hit the randomizer button right before we start. Dan, giving these guys 1 more minute to jump in here. What are your kind of pre-draft thoughts here? Are you targeting certain guys? How do you kind of go into these drafts?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it earlier, right? It's all about the team that I have currently, where my needs are, that sort of thing. But being just totally subjective, I'm targeting the guys who I think are going to carry the most long-term value, as well as being immediate contributors, because you don't want these guys just kind of sitting on the bench. You want to be able to rotate them in, start them. Maybe you give them a try on your bye weeks and things like that. So, there's a couple of guys at the top of my list for each position that I'm 100% going to target regardless of team need. But then there's those other guys that I'm going to backfill my roster with in the later rounds. And it all just depends on, who my squad is, what my needs are, how old my players are. I think that plays a huge factor into what what route you take for your dynasty. Because the shelf life of players is just getting shorter and shorter with the more talent that we're getting as the years go by. So,
all right, well, let's go ahead and get this out of here and let's get this thing kicked off. I see Kevin the Dude. Kev, is this you? Tyler's in here. Jenkins is in here. Appreciate you all being here. Let me hit this randomizer real quick. And random. How do I hit the randomizer? I did this last time. Can I remember how to do it this time? Oh, no. Draft settings. Draft order. Here we go.
There it is.
Randomize one time. And start the draft.
Pick 7, baby.
Man, you and I are back to back here. So it will go a lot quicker than our last time because there are a whole bunch of obviously just auto drafts. Bijan goes number 1. I told you earlier if I would have got that one spot, I think I might take Anthony Richardson. I'm really thinking about it. Richardson, Young, Stroud. Long. Yeah, and then Jahmyr Gibbs. So I'm going to go ahead and let JSN slide to you because I talked about it earlier. This is something I'm actually doing, and I have ranked him this way. And I'm really starting. I believe in this. It's just not a bit. I think Jordan Addison has a greater chance to have immediate impact this year than Jackson Smith and Jigba. I'm going to take Jordan Addison at 106.
I love the conviction there. You got to stand by, stand
right.
your ground on that. I'm glad you let him slide to me. I'm definitely going to take JSN if I'm sitting here at 1-7. I'm feeling pretty good about that pick. Regardless, I think there's a little more internal conflict on who you're going to go with if JSN's taken there. At least for the average fantasy football player, right? You're wondering because going into the draft, all the reports were it's JSN and then everybody else. So if you're kind of riding that same idea, then it makes it a little harder to shuffle. Obviously, after you broke down your point about Jordan Addison, I'm a little more higher on him than I was prior to it. Quentin Johnston's another guy that gives me, some pause just because Keenan Allen's on his way out the door. Herbert's always going to sling the rock over there in Los Angeles. So, Mike Williams can't catch all the passes. But I'm going to go JSN, go ahead and lock it in and let there goes Johnston right after, followed by Zay Flowers for Baltimore. And who I think, if Lamar Jackson's going to do what they keep saying he's going to do, and they're going to work more passing plays into it, let him kind of sit in the pocket a little more. Who knows what Zay Flowers can do from the slot?
Yeah, and so I was going to ask you real quick before I talk about Zay Flowers. If I take JSN, who do you take out of those 3 guys?
Man, it's hard, but I think I go Johnston just because of the Keenan Allen factor.
Yep.
Obviously, Addison's got a lot of appeal there as well. So it's between those two guys, but it's like a coin flip situation.
Isn't it amazing? These 4 guys are also drafted in the NFL draft back to back to back to back.
Oh man, the
Right
receiver run was insane,
That
and
was
you knew it was going to
crazy.
happen.
It was weird that JSN had fallen that far, and then like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
It was pretty sweet. You got to go back, go to Bite Size Sports YouTube page. First of all, subscribe to it. Okay, subscribe to our channel, help us out. But think of like when you go there, look up John Boyd's reaction when Minnesota takes Jordan Addison. As a fantasy guy, I'm like, yes, rah rah, you know. But as a Vikings fan, he was not happy. I think he's coming around to it right now. But the reaction was awesome because he was like, "What are you doing?" So that was interesting.
Another video worth checking out too is the mock draft that we did prior to the draft itself, where we kind of were talking about that wide receiver run and when it was going to happen. So I think it happened right about where we expected it to.
That's right. All right. So real quick, let me catch you up. Kev goes Josh Downs.
Round
Man,
1.
I know you're a Colts guy, so that kind of fits your brand a little bit there. I've been getting him in round 3, and I have been loving it. I actually do like Josh Downs a lot this year. Maybe not 1.10, but I do like him. Dalton Kincaid goes at 111. Devin A-Chain, 112. So those guys are guys we just talked about, and we love those guys in that position. Levis drops to 210, followed by Charbonnet, Keandre Miller, Michael Mayer, Jonathan Mingo. You can have all the Jonathan Mingo you want. I am up right now. Actually, I'm going to pull up because I think that I have Spears and Rice like right beside each other. So I just want to kind of quickly see how fast I can do this because I like Rashee Rice. You talked about him earlier. I really like Tajay Spears. Yes, he doesn't have an ACL, so that kind of hurts him a little bit. But you're looking for a running back. You're expecting only a couple of years out of him anyways, right? Like we're not drafting running backs anymore with this high expectation that we're going to get them forever. It's just not what we get anymore, right? I do have Rashee Rice above him though, so I will take
Rice. Don't do it to me, Trevor.
I had him over. I wanted to go with my rankings on it, which is why I wanted to look it up real fast. I have Rice one wide receiver spot above Marvin Mims here, which we haven't really talked a lot about.
Yeah, I was going to talk. I'll talk about him after the draft. I think that's kind of like a prelude to why I'll be talking about him since we said we were going to be doing our fallers. But yeah, I'm not super high on him. I'm looking at the board. Hendon Hooker. It's getting close to the end of the second. I don't know that I really want to spend this capital on him since I'm sitting at 2.7. There's maybe a chance he comes back around to me in the 3rd round, depending on how things fall. Probably not. But we're going to assume that I'm not super quarterback needy. Man, I've just been talking about this tight end class so much. I'm going to go Sam Laporta here. I like the Detroit tight end. I want to lock in one of these premier guys. These 3 tight ends that have been selected already, Kincaid, Mayer, and Laporta, they, in my opinion, landed in the very best situations out of any of the other tight ends that were drafted. Maybe you can argue a case for the tight ends that were taken in Green Bay and Dallas, but the problem is both of those teams needed a tight end, and they both took 2 of them. So you don't know who's going to be the clear-cut number 1 there. In Green Bay, is it going to be Musgrave?
Green Bay was back-to-back picks for him, wasn't it?
Yeah, Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, who was highly touted coming out of South Dakota State. So those 2 guys, and then you're looking at Dallas, who's got Schoonmaker, and they took Jake Ferguson later in the draft too. So there's just a lot of question marks about which rookies are going to rise there. But I mean, I want to secure one of these guys here right now, so I'm taking Laporta.
Yeah, I like that round 3 pick number 34 for the Detroit Lions. Just continue, replacing TJ Hawkinson essentially. And like you said, all 3 of these guys have clear paths of being the starting tight end this year. There's nobody. Las Vegas traded away Darren Waller, right? We talked earlier about Buffalo and Dawson Knox and his inability really. So they all 3 have great opportunity to be a starting tight end this year. After that goes Hendon Hooker right at 208. Tajay Spears that I talked about at 209. Roshan Johnson to Kev at 210. Jenkins takes Jaden Reed. I like Jaden Reed there in the back of the second round. Tyler takes Marvin Mims, Musgrave, Hyatt, Tillman, Bigsby, and the aforementioned Schoonmaker. Is it Schoonmaker?
Schoonmaker or Schoonmaker. It's one of the two.
To be the top 5 here. A lot of running backs on the board. Kayshon Boutte at wide receiver, Donner Washington, Britton Strange here at tight end. The way this draft has fallen, really right now, the running backs are aplenty. And for me, I'm just going to end up going with the guy that I have ranked the highest out of all these guys, which right now is Chase Brown. Yeah, Chase Brown's on there. I have Chase Brown just above Zach Evans. I am starting now that I'm on the clock. Like I think I'd rather have Zach Evans. Chase Brown has a chance because of the legal issues, but dude, the Rams, Cam Akers has been in the doghouse. Zach Evans could easily come in and be the starter like early this year, right? Am I crazy to think that?
I don't think you're crazy at all, man. I really like Evans because of that. I mean, there was uncertainty about Akers last year. He like disappeared for 2 or 3 games for a reason that really hasn't been discussed publicly. So there's all those question marks for Chase Brown. I definitely understand the at least the urge to draft him with Joe Mixon's status kind of being up in the air. You really don't know what's going to happen with him. And that's kind of a similar situation with Miller, right? You don't know what's going to happen with Alvin Kamara, how many games he's going to miss because of that suspension. So just kind of looking at what I have available, I did want to go running back with this last pick. None of the other running backs that are really available have those clear paths to be starters. You know, there's a bunch of other guys kind of in front of them. So I am going to go with Brown here. Just kind of lock in one of these running backs, one of the guys who I think has a quicker path to becoming an impact player earlier than what some of these other guys might have the chance to be.
Well, I just updated my rankings mid show. I had them back to back, but I had never actually been on the clock where I had to pick one of the two. You know, it's different when you're just putting them together. You put them on paper. You're like, oh,
put it on a spreadsheet.
Exactly. But when you actually have to make that pick, I was like, oh, I kind of want Zach Evans here. Kev says too early for sure. Should have took A-Chain. So too early on Josh Downs. The thing about it is Josh Downs is not falling back to you at 210.
Right.
So go get your guy. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Just go get your guy. And honestly, so you got Josh Downs and Roshan Johnson instead of A-Chain, Jaden Reed. I would have taken A-Chain, Jaden Reed in that situation probably. If you're just looking at 2v2s like what you could have had here at the 110. After you took Chase Brown, Izzy goes there. The third running back maybe in New York. Washington, Darnell Washington goes. Kevin takes Kayshon Boutte out of New England, who we haven't really talked a lot about. Evan Gray for the Giants, who I kind of like taking the flyer on here and there just because Saquon, we know that he's had injury troubles in the past as well, so maybe he doesn't stay on the field.
On a one-year deal.
Tyler just – look at this. Okay, Tyler takes Britton Strange here. I kid you not. I'm in a draft with Tyler right now. He is just took your money at 312, Britton Strange. This was just hours ago, 6:15 tonight. He took Britton Strange.
He's a consistent man.
That is right.
He's a consistent man.
So anything jump out to you? If you're in the chat, how do you feel about this draft? Does anything jump out to you? Let us know. Guys like Josh Downs, is that too high? We've talked about Roshan Johnson and how he's been moving up boards. Do you feel like this is too low for him? I do not, but others might. Let us know in the chat what you think. Anything for you here, Dan, that stands out?
Well, I mean, Roshan Johnson, you've kind of talked about a little bit already, right? There's just so much competition, honestly, in the Chicago backfield. Khalil Herbert is still there. He's expected to be that number one guy. They brought in Deontay Foreman, who had a very nice end to his season last year. So I really don't see the hype that's pushing him up these boards because he really wasn't hyped up that much, even in the draft, compared to some of these other guys, like just for the going into the NFL draft. So, I think he has potential, but there's just so much competition there. I guess a secondary point, we can kind of transition into our followers a little bit here too.
Let's do it, because one guy who fell in this draft here, right? Marvin Mims. He falls to the back of the second round here. I've been seeing him kind of a little bit towards the front end of the second, mid-second, falls to the back end of the second, leads us right into our rookie fallers, and I think a guy that you might even want to talk about.
Yes, that is probably one of my number one fallers if I'm looking at the wide receivers that are coming out. So Marvin Mims, Oklahoma. I thought he was a great talent, right, coming into the draft, but he got drafted. It's all about where you go. It's all about your situation. Sean Payton is an offensive genius. This has nothing to do with Sean Payton. This has everything to do with their wide receiver room in Denver and the fact that they have publicly stated they're not trading Cortland Sutton. They're not trading Jerry Jones. Allegedly, they're not, or Jerry Jeudy, not Jerry Jones. Allegedly, they're not fielding calls for those guys. So that means wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, that's locked up. Boom, forget about it. Greg Dulcich at tight end, he's going to command a lot of targets. And then when you're looking at the rest of the receivers, they still have Tim Patrick coming back from injury. They have KJ Hamler still on the roster. I mean, that's 5-6 pass catchers right there that Marvin Mims is going to be competing for targets with. It's just, and Russell Wilson really wasn't the best quarterback from the pocket last year anyway. So all of these factors are really just bothering me about Mims, and I'm not surprised to see him fall back of the second. We didn't talk about Kayshon Boutte, but having him in New England with Juju Smith-Schuster, and I mean, who's their other receivers really? I almost like him better than Mims.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, I can't get on the Boutte train. That didn't sound right.
Hey, you're wild, man.
That just came out of nowhere. I can't
love it.
I can't get on Kayshon Boutte right now. There in New England, just because of the offense, right? The offense wants to go through tight ends, and they bring in Juju to be the number one, and they want to run the ball, those kind of things. But I don't know. I guess I would say that they've had success with the wide receivers in the past. It's just never been consistent.
Yeah.
The one thing I think that people are really gravitating towards with Marvin Mims is it's Sean Payton's first pick. Out of every pick, he takes Marvin Mims.
He didn't have a choice. I mean? It's not his fault he picked 58 overall or whatever.
Right, yeah. But that's I've seen that touted a little bit. And to me, so be it. At some point in time, Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy are going to leave. They're probably not at least one of the two will not be a Denver Bronco. But there's really no reason for that to happen this year unless they just get something great. Yeah. I think Cortland Sutton, not Jerry Jeudy, one of the two are coming up contract here pretty quickly. Never really got a long extension. They all got paid 2-3 years ago. But either way, it feels like it's like you said. There's just too many wide receivers in that.
Too many mouths to feed. Bijan, number 1 overall in a super flex. I'm not a fan of it. I'm honestly not a fan of Bijan's situation and where he got drafted to the Atlanta Falcons. That's probably one of the last places I would have wanted him to
hang
go.
on. How do I do this?
Is my
Here, maybe I just need to do this. You burn the house down.
Is my take too hot? I mean, are we getting malfunctions here? So Bijan Robinson, number 1 overall. I got a really big problem with it, especially in super flex leagues with these quarterbacks. Anthony Richardson definitely can carry a little more weight on your fantasy team than he can. the Falcons just had a 1,000-yard rusher in Tyler Algier. So they're not just going to completely phase him out of the offense for Bijan Robinson. The Falcons also have a little bit of a questionable offensive line situation, and the passing game really isn't there to help leverage that rush game as much as you would hope it would be. Even though they have a couple weapons in Kyle Pitts, they really could never get that side of things going. So even if for whatever reason the Falcons try to run their offense through Bijan, he's not going to have that support in the passing game. So I'm not saying he's not the number one overall consensus running back. Okay. He is the best running back on the board, but there's these quarterbacks that still are going to be able to contribute, I think, a little bit more than him. So putting him number one overall, especially in any dynasty draft, but especially in a super flex league, is a big no for me. If I'm sitting at the 1-1, I'm taking probably Richardson, honestly, but I'm not high on him. I was, of all the places for him to go, that was one of the few that I was like, oh, really? If anything, I was really banking on him going to Philly at 10.
That would have been sick.
Didn't shake out that way, man.
It would have sucked as a Chiefs fan, but that would have been sick.
Yeah. What would have been worse is if he went to my second favorite destination, which was Buffalo.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's where he almost went in our mock draft that we did right before the NFL draft. As a team. Yeah, earlier in the show, I talked about, man, I really have been having this like internal debate about taking Richardson over Bijan Robinson. I think he makes some really good points, and I persuade you to kind of start jumping on the Richardson train, and I think you've now pushed me over the edge to just say Anthony Richardson to the moon.
Truther, baby.
Go. Yeah,
I'll be an
Anthony
Richardson truther with you this year.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And you make the points, and I think the one thing you brought up that really hit home, like Tyler Algier is not going anywhere.
Right.
He's still going. Now his fantasy value is pretty much dust at this point. If you can get something out of him, get something for him. But in terms of NFL value, he's still going to be there. It's probably going to be a split backfield. And Bijan, he's being tracked. Dude, I've been doing these underdog drafts. I'll just plug myself, right? Underdog drafts. Come see me Friday nights at 8:15 Central. I'll be there this Friday. Let me see if I can throw up the. I don't know if I can, but because it's on my brand, that's why.
That's okay.
I have to change brands, but I'll show it up. Yeah, come over to my show Friday, 8:15 Central. It's a best ball summer. This Friday, we'll probably have to be drafting a best ball mania team, so it's a $25 entry over the puppies who are only $5 entries. But no, I did 10 puppy drafts in the first puppy. I did one on stream 2 weeks ago. Bijan's going as like the top, I think the third running back. I think it's going Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Bijan Robinson. And that's in the early part of the second round. They're taking Bijan Robinson. Come check it out on Friday night. You can see where Bijan is landing right now.
Oh, boy.
But that's just wild to me.
Oh, boy. I can't wait until redraft talk gets started up on this show because, I mean, you said it earlier. You go ahead and fall on that sword. That's 150% how I feel about people taking Bijan as the RB3 in a redraft. No way, no how.
That's where he's going. He is being very highly valued right now. What other followers you got here? Anyone else?
Man, last one I want to talk about is a little bit of a bummer for me because I was really big on him. I was really hoping he'd get an opportunity with the team that needed a tight end, and it's Darnell Washington. He gets drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are a great organization, but they have Pat Freiermuth already. They have a young quarterback who, kind of started to come into his own a little bit towards the end of last season. Of course, that world-class defense that they have in Pittsburgh helped them win a lot of those games, if not almost every single one.
It wasn't Kenny Pickett.
No, he wasn't carrying them to the finish line by any means. But, it's kind of disappointing that Darnell Washington lands in Pittsburgh. I mean, Mike Tomlin's not known for running a whole lot of 2 tight end sets and letting both those tight ends really get a ton of targets or anything like that. Like Freiermuth, obviously, is probably one of the better tight ends that they've had since like Heath Miller, to be honest with you. So, yeah, it was just kind of disappointing. And, you just hope he doesn't turn into like that run blocker guy. You want him to, at least from your fantasy perspective, you want him to be able to use that big body frame and be like a red zone guy.
And entertainment value because he's so
Yeah.
large. Like I just want to see him running, streaking down the seam, just full steam ahead, and just
He's
bowling
like what
over those
LeBron James
safeties.
would be if he played in the
That's
NFL.
right.
You know what I mean? He's got that same build.
That is right. I'll talk about my followers. I'm going to answer this question from Lee first. Thank you all for being here with us. Look, throw in any rookie questions you've got. Dan and I love to just kind of chat with you all, answer your questions as well. We're talking rookie risers and fallers right now. We did the mock draft, but we will also answer any questions that you have. Lee says here, what do you think about Tank Bigsby to the Jags behind ETN? I know he's not on your radar, but any thoughts? And I wouldn't say he's not on our radar. Some of these rookie drafts go 4 or 5 rounds deep. So obviously, in a 3-round rookie draft, well, he goes 304 here actually. So he's still going up there. You're probably going to see him in your drafts. For me, I'll just take the quick run. Like Dan, you were all in on James Robinson last year here in Jacksonville. Obviously, he ends up getting traded, but I don't see why Tank Bigsby couldn't potentially have a little bit of a role in Jacksonville. ETN, has been fine. He does come off injury. I think this kind of, to me, it makes me think that Jacksonville is either A, they don't want to bring in a veteran running back that's still out there and available, like even like a Fournette who could catch passes for them or something.
Or Kareem Hunt or
Kareem Hunt. Like maybe they just don't like any of those guys. So they said, look, let's just take another rookie. Let's keep our running back young and cheap, but we have a solid backup. We have a solid, number 2 running back. So as far as Dynasty, it makes it a little bit difficult to see a long-term value for a guy like Tank Bigsby. But I don't mind throwing flyers at him, end of redrafts or even trying to, keeping my eye on him in the early stages of free agency, just because running backs, their shelf life is pretty limited. And so maybe Bigsby gets a little bit of action here in the early season for Jacksonville. But yeah, I don't mind him at 304 here. I'm taking Zach Evans and Chase Brown above him.
Yep.
But I don't know that Izzy and Evan Gray and Tank Bigsby, and I would put Roschon Johnson probably between Brown and Bigsby. But as far as just looking at this mock draft that we just did, back into the 3rd round, I'm not upset about that range.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if we're talking redraft, those late rounds, that's cuffing season, baby. That's where you grab that backup for your guy, right? And if I'm taking ETN round 6 or 7, then you bet your bottom dollar I'm looking for Bigsby later on in that draft. But definitely not taking him over those guys that have a more clear path in a dynasty draft, rookie draft. You want. With running backs, you said it already, right? They really don't have more than like a 5-year impact window from a fantasy perspective. So you want to capitalize on that as early as possible, especially in these types of drafts, and going after a guy like Bigsby where, he may not get a clear-cut run at the role for 2-3 years. And when he does, it's going to be a 2 to 3 year window at most. And that's if he's lucky, right? A lot of these running backs, if they see a 6-year starting window, then they're putting up numbers like Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, and those kinds of guys that have held their roles for as long as they have. And I just don't know that that's what's going to happen in Jacksonville for him.
Yeah. As you were talking, I kept thinking about those guys, the Kamaras, McCaffreys, all these old 28 to 30-year-old 27 to 30-year-old running backs now, like guys that we've talked a whole lot about. And that's just not the norm. It feels like
No.
the norm right now because they're all still really good, but that is not the norm for running backs.
I'll put
You
that
know?
on the 2017 rookie class just being incredible like
Yeah.
it was. Like, it was just so deep from McCaffrey in the first round all the way to Aaron Jones in round 5. I mean, you're just talking talented running back after talented running back.
And that's what we see still today, and that's what was in our minds, but we're not thinking about. Like Tank Bigsby, he could be out of the league in 3 years, like before his rookie contract gets up. Like I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. He's a third day draft pick. We know third day draft picks for fantasy football are not guys that we're necessarily like salivating over, because when you get to the third day, like there's a reason you're being drafted in the third day. And so anybody's not understanding, like that's rounds 4, 5, 6, and 7. These guys don't hit like the first 2 day guys, like the first 3 round guys do. So Tank falling down to the 4th round tells us what the NFL feels about him. So yeah, again, when you get to the 3rd and 4th rounds, you're like, just go get the guy that you like the most. And if you're a Tank Bigsby guy, go get him. I'm not going to fault you for that, but
Right.
I would caution you to reach any higher than, than this 304 range that just happened in our mock draft.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a guy like Bigsby's he's not making you throw away your shares of ETN. You know what I mean?
Right,
It's
yeah.
not going to work out that way. Not like Robinson is doing
Exactly.
to Tyler Algier.
Tyler Ozer says both GB tight ends. I assume he's talking about Fallers. I agree here. We talked about it during the mock draft for sure. I loved it when I saw Luke Musgrave like in the second round. I think it was the second round, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When they took him in the second round, I was like, that's perfect. That's Green Bay needs a tight end. This is great. And then, I mean, their next pick, it's what? I was gonna check it and see how
It was like 2 picks later because they got that pick from the Jets in the Rodgers trade. So
it must not have been their next pick. It was the next round.
I thought it was their next pick.
Oh, here it is. No, Tucker Kraft, round 3, pick 78. So
okay.
Either way, it was the next round. But still, you take Luke Musgrave and you get everybody excited, and you take Jaden Reed. You're like, okay, here comes Green Bay. They're going to start building around Jordan
that's
Love.
right.
And then they take Tucker Kraft. And it's like, come on, guys. You're killing the fantasy production here. But NFL teams don't care about that. They just care about their winning football games, as they should. But yeah, it definitely hurts both of those guys. I just don't know. I think either one of them could become the one. I also think they could just be tied in by committee forever. So,
yeah. Yep. You just don't know what's going to happen out there. They're going to be, Green Bay, new quarterback, maybe new offensive scheme going on over there. I think there's just a lot that's up in the air. They have like this hodgepodge of different weapons with Reed and Watson and the 2 tight ends, and they still have AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. There's just a lot of pieces there that you got to see.
It feels great. It feels like they should have a really awesome offense.
Yeah, a lot of young guys for sure too.
We'll see how they gel around Jordan Love. Again, let us know in the chat if you have any questions. I'm going to go through my followers here. I'll start with Tajay Spears. Again, so I looked at it not in terms of who I think should fall or my own rankings, but more in terms of where they were going pre-draft and how I'm seeing them being drafted now in these, whether it's mock drafts or our actual rookie drafts. Tajay Spears was being drafted as a running back 6, round pick 18 pre-draft. And then, after the drafts, reports come out about him not having an ACL. How the heck do you play football without an ACL? I am no doctor, but I feel like that has to be nearly impossible. But this guy's doing it. He also goes to Tennessee. That doesn't help him because everybody knows Derrick Henry. And nobody wants to believe that Derrick Henry could actually be moved this offseason. So it's just hurt his stock here and his value. I got him at the one of the drafts that I showed you that I'm currently in. I got him at pick 27. I'm very happy with that. That's early in the third round. Tajay Spears goes 209 in our mock draft just recently, but get him at 27. I've seen him drop down to around the 30 range. I'm not really sure if it's just all those things combined. People are just scared of this guy right now. But if I can get a good couple of years in Tennessee, even without an ACL, Tennessee's going to feed whoever the number one is, the rock. Derrick Henry is 29 years old. He could be moved this offseason. He will not be a Tennessee Titan in 2024. I do not believe that. Like, there's no reason for the Titans to have him on the roster in 2024. So Tajay Spears could be there. Again, another opportunity, another clear path to be the number one running back. And we know that Tennessee loves to feed their number one running backs there. So give me a couple of years doing that, and I don't care if he doesn't sign a second deal, right? Maybe health deters him to be able to do that. For fantasy purposes, I'm good with that. I'll take him falling down to picks 27 to 30 all the time. I don't mind that at all. Josh Downs is another guy. I talked about it earlier. He did not fall in our mock draft here, but I'm not really sure what's pushing this guy down. He does have a smaller stature. He's not super fast, but what he lacks in speed and size, he makes up for in quickness. He also makes up for it with his catching abilities. Nearly 80% catch rate in his last season of college. Again, when he falls into the 20s, I'm trying to do my best to jump up in the draft and get him because, I also love, and I don't know how you feel about this, Dan, I love when teams bring in rookie running backs with their rookie quarterbacks, right? You think Tank Dell in Houston, you think Josh Downs in Indianapolis. They're working at rookie camp right now together already. Yep. I feel like it gives the rookie wide receivers a little bit of a leg up for these wide receivers who are going to be, being the quarterbacks who are going to be the starters in week one. It gives the wide receivers a leg up on some of the others. I say that, but I still hate Jonathan Mingo. So take it with a grain of salt, right? And then the other one that I just talked about, Tyler brought it up, Tucker Kraft, right? I'm not going to beat the dead horse at this point in time, but when Green Bay drafts him the next round, it just hurts both of their fantasy values. It's pretty obvious.
It's disappointing.
That's pretty. The NBA. I'm happy. A picture of never know till the last shot. No way. Is it over, dude? I was gonna take Boston tonight too, but we had our show and I haven't even been paying attention.
I haven't looked at the score since we started it up. Oh my goodness! 114-109 Miami with 4 minutes left.
Oh man, dang, that's crazy. This is a really great time though to bring up, since we're gonna talk about, we say a little bit NBA talk. We told you earlier, necessary reference on Tuesday nights. I'm going Friday nights. Obviously, you got Dan and I on Wednesday nights. But don't miss out on the bounce. There's a lot of NFL talk here on Bite Size Sports, but check out the bounce. It's our NBA flagship show. Kev and James do a phenomenal job with the bounce. They're on every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central Time. It's been a lot of fun during the playoffs because I'll be watching them plus watching the game. So I'm like sending in like updates to them. And it's just been a lot of fun. And they did a live show. Was it yesterday? Was the NBA draft lottery show? So yep. San Antonio pulls the number one pick. They're going to get the big Frenchman, who's supposed to be the best prospect of all time. Is what I'm reading. Who knows? They're going to hype it up right now. But now he gets to go to San Antonio, who drafted David Robinson and wow. Why don't I remember Tim Duncan?
Tim Duncan, baby.
The big guys, and now they're gonna get the Frenchman.
Mr.
So
Fundamental.
Check out the bounce. They'll be live tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Central. It's a really great time, and I think you all should go check them out as they finish up the NBA season. And they'll be here during the NBA offseason, just like we're here during the NFL offseason as well. Quickly, Tyler says, if Titans trade Henry, where's the best fantasy spot for him?
I mean, I like Buffalo. Honestly, I think that's a great spot for him.
Dan, we are Chiefs fans. Come on, man.
I like Buffalo. I like Philly, right? They've already sent another former Titan star there who's flourishing in
That's right,
AJ
yeah.
Brown. Those two for sure. I feel like there's still room on the depth chart for a premier running back like Derrick Henry.
Not your Chiefs?
I don't know that we really run the offense that's conducive to his style.
I would agree with that. I just wanted to throw it out there. Chicago, like if the Bears are serious about this thing,
Baltimore,
they've got 3 guys. They got 3 bodies in Foreman and Herbert and now Johnson. Like you get a guy like Henry. Fantasy value though, like if we're just talking fantasy, I would probably lean Philly over Buffalo just because Buffalo I think is similar to the Chiefs where their offense is really all about, Josh Allen and creating and passing.
Yeah.
And they kind of just run just to set up the pass. Whereas Philly's offense is running the football. Like that's what they do.
Yeah.
And then they pass it and hit AJ Brown for 60-yard bombs. But it's really run first offense. So I would agree with fantasy value, a place like Philadelphia. What I actually like see happening is if Derrick Henry is traded, I think that it's going to be to one of these. I don't think it's going to be to an absolute contending team. I think it'll be to a team who feels like I could be contending if I have a guy like Derrick Henry. Maybe like
LA.
Maybe Dallas. I was thinking Dallas because they just got rid of Zeke and they don't really love Pollard. But I hesitate because I love Pollard and I don't want that to happen. LA, the Rams, I think would be good. Pre-draft, I thought about Seattle just to have a second running back, but they just took Charbonnet, so definitely not a place like Seattle anymore.
Imagine if he went to New Orleans and got paired with like Kamara. That'd be a real crazy thunder and lightning situation.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet. That would not be so sweet for Keandre Miller.
No.
Who I love early. I think he's gonna have an opportunity early in the season.
Yeah.
We talk about a lot about the clear path to being a number 1 or a number 2. He has a clear path to, at least secure the number 2 running back for the entire season because he's going to have an opportunity in the first 5 games. I assume Alvin Kamara is going to be out for 4 to 6 games for suspension.
Very likely.
Well, I think that's it for tonight, Dan. What do you think?
I think it feels pretty good to get back into it for sure.
Absolutely.
But, man, I'm ready for I'm just dying for football.
Yeah. It's this like the draft is cool. I know, because you get you're like gearing up for the draft, and then you're like, okay, the draft's here. Now it's gone. Now what?
Right.
And then you get the schedule release.
Here, it was like such a crescendo.
Yeah. Did you see the real quick? Did you see the Warren Sharp Twitter thread about the fairness and the equitable inequity of the schedule? And he's talking about how the Chiefs have like their last 6 games, they have less days of rest than every single opponent they have.
Oh, wait. I'm thinking of something else.
No, it's like it's all about like days of rest versus, so one team is like negative 20 days of rest throughout the whole season, but in the past they've never gone like over negative 15. Like it's just about how unequal the schedule continues to grow year over year. And it's really inequitable this year. And the Chiefs were one of the teams that he brought up. Like their last 6 games, they have less days of rest. So at least 1 day less than the other teams are playing.
not to get too far down this rabbit hole, but Chiefs schedule definitely made me a little bit upset as a ticket holder and as a fan. We got a noon Christmas Day kickoff.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the season against a divisional opponent. And then on 6 days rest, we're hosting the Cincinnati Bengals to potentially decide, the
seeding for sure,
AFC
right?
Seeding for the playoffs. So you're going to have a 6 days rest on a Christmas Day game to go into this other game that happens to be on New Year's Eve as well. So like, there's just a lot of things about the schedule that bother me for sure. Not that it has a ton of fantasy football implications, but there's a chance that it could if this short rest ends up getting somebody injured. So
only one noon game on a Sunday. Like, dude, those are the best. Going to Chiefs games, that's when you want to go.
Yep. And it's early in the year. It's like week 3 or 4.
You want to go to the 12 o'clock game so you can get home by 6 o'clock or whatever. You got time to be with your family before you get hit the. I get a lot of that.
Double down on Thursday night games for us too.
Yep, and a lot of it is because they're good, and so the NFL wants to capitalize on that. I understand that, but Tyreek Hill talking all that shit, and now that game's in Germany. Like, come on, NFL, like,
let us have that.
Come on, like that's just ridiculous. But yes, another topic for another day. Dan, if you're here with us, you've stayed with us, thank you again. Please hit that like button. Subscribe to Bite Size Sports on Twitter. We have surpassed our 500 subscribers. We are well on our way to continuing to grow, continuing to bring more content to you all. We're looking to open up new shows. I'm thinking about trying to set something up for like a Friday morning during the summertime because my work schedule is a little bit more flexible. So hopefully I can add a little bit more, just like a sports show, just talking all sports, whatever's happening that week. So keep an eye out for that. But we're always trying to bring you new stuff. Follow me on Twitter at TrevorS_FF and come back. Join me this Friday night. I'm going to say 8:15 Central. Check my Twitter. It may move to 9. I got a graduation party to hit up for a cousin of mine. But either way, it is that season. I will be live drafting a Best Ball Mania 4 team. I'm trying to turn my $25 into a cool $3 million.
Hey man, nothing wrong with a little $3 million to put in the bank account. The little casual $3 million drop there.
Yes, let's go. I don't mind the DraftKings lead, but it doesn't do well for streaming. Underdog's just so clean when you're live. DraftKings is not. Like the draft board is just not very good. So anyway, side note. But yes, Friday night, come join me for a Best Ball Summer.
I'm a big fan of the Underdog format and their UI. I think it's really nice. It is clean.
They've done a really good job.
100%. Well, I'll go ahead and close this out as well. You can follow me on Twitter at Dan_TF40. We're going to get the Fastest 40 going again closer to the season, kind of taking a little bit of a hiatus on that side of things until we get closer. It was a grind last year for sure. Just rolling with ADP. Follow us on Twitter at ADP Podcast _FF. And of course, the team that makes everything possible for us here, Bite Size Sports at Bite_Size Sports. Love everybody that's on the team here. It's an absolute pleasure to get to collaborate with everyone here. So tune into all those shows Trevor talked about earlier. You got the Bounce tomorrow night. They'll be talking about this crazy Eastern Conference Finals game that's going on right now. Jimmy Butler, as Lee said, is putting on a master class. I think he's got 30-something points already at this point. So tune in for that show. And definitely check us out on Spotify, Anchor, or I guess it's just Spotify now. They merged. So Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
That's right, yep.
That's where you can check out ADP. If you're not trying to watch the video, you don't care to see our ugly mugs, then you can check us out on the audio there. But hey, appreciate everybody for tuning in, and we'll be back next week.
I need to know everything, who and the what and the where. I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George. I hop in the Porsche, a 5 and a horse. I'm ready for war. I'm coming for throats to turn to a ghost. I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get is by letting them talk. So I'm